There are structural issues. Two big things, I think. There are big issues in our economy, which means we're not driving the growth that we want. You know, our country isn't getting wealthier at the pace or the way that we would like.
Well, debt's going up and spending's going up.
So
and taxes going up.
You know, this is a really good week to be talking about this. You know, Rachel Reeves has to go to Parliament this week and talk about how she's going to divvy up government spending in this thing called the spending review, which is when she says how over the next 3 years, so basically for most of the time that's left between now and the general election, Rachel Reeves is going to set out how she's going to divvy up the money across government. But one of the problems she's got is that our economy isn't growing fast enough. So,
but that has been a problem since the crash, as we're going back to.
It has been a really big issue that both in the public sector and the private sector, our productivity, basically the amount that we do, the amount that we produce per hour as a nation isn't going up as fast as we would like it to, which means the Chancellor ends up with less money coming into the coffers through taxes, which means you have less money to spend either on public services or, crucially, to give the public a break and reduce their taxes. And you said it, debt. One of the little-known facts, I think, across the country is kind of what's happened to our debt in this country.
100% of GDP as our national debt is now.
The nation's credit card is maxed out.
Yeah.
Before the global financial crash, we had what we call the kind of debt to GDP ratio. Was high 30s, 40% back in 2008. And then Gordon Brown, in response to the global financial crash, had to dip into that. Then we dipped into the debt during COVID and the response to Ukraine, and now we're at 100%. So that Chancellor's got, you know, that you cannot borrow any more money to keep paying for public services. So you've got to put, you know, it's about putting the squeeze on the public services now to get.
And you can see it. Do you see what I'm seeing? You know, Nigel Farage keeps saying there's something happening out there. Do you worry that the actual fabric of this country is starting to fray? The two-party system right now is looking pretty shaky. If there was a general election tomorrow, you'd have the potential of an entirely new political party sweeping through and putting the 400 majority government out, a 400-seat Labour Party out on its ear. Do you think we're yet at that stage? You say you're deeply concerned about if radical change doesn't come. How long have we got?
Not very long at all. I think the internal pressures, as you said, kind of how people feel about whether things are fair.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that. I think fairness is a really kind of important concept in this country.
And trust in the government.
I am working, you know, I'm working hard, my family's working hard, one or two jobs or whatever it is. You know, I'm putting my shoulder to the wheel to kind of provide for my family. I'm paying my taxes. What I want is a fair chance at work, and I want fair service, and I want a fair go from what the government's supposed to provide to me, and that kind of contract, I think, is beginning to break in this country.
So you're not surprised to see someone like Nigel Farage capitalise on that, regardless of what he says. He's building that coalition that Boris Johnson nudged towards of disaffiliated working class people in former industrial heartlands, overtaxed people in other parts of the country who feel like they're paying way more than their fair share. Bits of Scotland have been left behind, bits of Wales have been left behind, rural, coastal communities that have been left behind. Yeah. If someone, we're slightly blessed in this country. I think that the far right in this country is a bit of a joke. But you look across the pond to France, to Germany. Could we be seeing? Do you worry we're going to see a similar backlash like that?
I mean, what I worry about most is actually having a properly functioning democracy. I said it before. If you vote for change, you've got to get change, and if people keep voting and they don't get change, they start to wonder, why on earth am I spending my time?
Why am I engaging?
Why am I voting? Why am I engaging? Why am I paying my taxes? So I think it's really important that, as I say, these are conversations that are often going on in very dusty corners of universities and bits of parliament about how power works in this country. But if we don't...
This conversation needs to be had in the open.
And OK, most people are too busy working too hard. They're trying to get their kids to school or pick their kids up from school, or, trying to get, granny a hospital appointment and whatever, and get them to have these conversations. But these conversations do matter. If you want this country to succeed, actually thinking about who wields power.
Looking at this and looking at the fraying of the social fabrics, and planning and making contingencies for, as you say, political violence, for what happens if this doesn't, if this doesn't simmer down. Is that something you would recognise and recommend that, yes, they should be doing that, because we're heading for breaking point?
Well, I think I'm not in government anymore. Haven't been there for 6 months, so I don't know. Mercifully, I don't know anymore what's going on. But there's quite a few things muddled up in that. So there is a thing which has actually existed since the 1970s, which focuses on civil contingencies. Actually, it all came out of the winter of discontent when nothing worked and everybody thought Britain was broken. So one of the things that happened was the government created a functioning government to think and plan. And
these hopefully weren't the same guys that did the COVID planning, the pandemic planning. Someone get the file, marked pandemic. Oh shit, it doesn't exist. Yeah.
So that thing's been around for a long time, and actually probably there are versions of that people will have heard of. So the infamous Cobra. That team tends to sort of operate our Cobra machinery. So it is there. In terms of planning for sort of full-scale political breakdown, I don't know whether that is what people
should they be planning
doing.
Are we there yet? How big are the red lights on the dashboard?
For me, look, you should always plan for the worst. I mean, it's like you should plan for full-on nuclear war. You should be planning for these things. But what really needs is everybody who cares about this country, whether you're at home, whether you're in the media, whichever political party you're in, whether you're a public servant, working not in a political role, official role. I mean, you should be caring right now about this and asking yourself the question, what is it I can do? What should I be saying? What should I be doing to try and get this country in the place that we want it to be, which is, where we've all got good jobs and we're getting a fair wage, where we are voting through the ballot box and saying, this is what we want our country to look like, and the people we put in power are able to do it.